All right, thank you for joining us on Wavy.com for this web exclusive. Brian Parsons, Andy Hilton of Recruit757.com is joining us. I'm Nathan Epstein. We're going to talk some high school football, and the reason we wanted to do this actually was, Brian, you and I were talking about this. We've been covering high school football for many years together. This is one of the best slates that we've seen in a while.
This is a great weekend. This would normally be basically what the first round would have been in years past.
Yes.
So the way the playoffs have been expanded so much. This is a lot of intriguing matchups. Let's start in Class 6.
Mm-hmm.
Oscar Smith 10-1 against Lansdowne 8-3. I think we know where the pendulum's going to swing in this game.
Well, of course, you would expect Oscar Smith to win this. The records show that Oscar Smith should win. They're at home here. But Lansdowne is still a strong Beach District team. You got to play the game. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Well, and you were talking, Andy, a little while ago about how Oscar Smith, we have 3 undefeated teams here. Or, excuse me, 4 undefeated teams this weekend.
Yes.
We got 3 teams with only 1 loss. Oscar Smith is one of those. And had it not been for Highland Springs, who happens to be, what, the 4 or 5, 6, I don't even know how many state
It's
champions.
4 times.
Four in a row.
Times.
Class 5 champions.
4 championships in a row. So without that 1 loss, they could be another one of those.
And they were
undefeateds.
really testing Highland Springs in that game for the season opener with a quarterback who had not played varsity football at that point. Ethan Vasco has now 11 games under his belt. He's a much better quarterback than he was 3 months ago.
Amazing defense by Highland Springs, too, by the way.
Yes.
It's unbelievable.
But Oscar Smith Lansdowne brings back memories of Greg Boot against Percy Harvin.
Yes.
Remember that?
Those games, yes.
Oh,
this
goodness.
rivalry goes back a ways.
Yeah. And Chris Scott, his first year at Oscar Smith, and no matter what happens in this game, he's going to keep the foot on the gas.
Absolutely. No mercy.
And now Class 5, all right, we all know that many people when the playoffs started assumed that we were just headed for a Salem-Maury showdown. 2 undefeated teams. Maury is, without a doubt, the highest scoring team in the area. But Woodside, Nansemond River, these guys are no joke. I mean, Andy, we talk about Woodside. You got 2 elite defenses going up against these games.
Salem and Woodside, 15 combined shutouts between
Yes.
the two. Woodside with 7, Salem with 8 shutouts. They've given up 3 touchdowns all season. 3 touchdowns
Exactly.
all year.
And we saw that when Woodside played Princess Anne last week. As electric as Princess Anne's offense is, they shut them down. Now, Princess Anne's defense is not as good as Salem's defense, so we really should have a defensive battle. It's a good thing we don't have pouring rain this weekend. We'll keep our fingers crossed on that. But it really could be a 0-0 score when these two reach the end of regulation.
Do you see Kaylon Black having any kind of impact? Can he break through that tough Woodside defense?
That's going to be a big question. Now, Phoebus put up points against Woodside. Phoebus has a good offense. Salem does have, again, a better offense than perhaps, I'm saying better defense than Princess Anne. They may yet have a better offense than Princess Anne considering the score that they had against PA head-to-head.
And you talk about Maury. I mean, we know about Keandre Lambert, headed to Penn State, the
Yes.
receiver there. We know about C.J. Beasley. Interestingly enough, Andy, you know about this, decommitted from Virginia
Yes.
Tech. So, but what kind of talent are we looking at? And then you have, who's the running back for Nansemond River, who's just been lighting it up.
Xavion Evans.
Xavion Evans. So,
Who put up, I believe it was 6 touchdowns and 3 two-point conversions against, Deep Creek 2 weeks ago.
yeah, and then they beat Indian River, which was an amazing win last week. So, what are we expecting, I guess, from Maury and Nansemond
So
River?
the thing is, that Maury can score points at will. Nansemond River knows what they're going to have to do to stop Maury. It's a question of whether or not they can do it. The other side is Maury going to look forward, which, of course, in the playoffs, you can't afford to do that. So you would think Maury would be able to win, but Nansemond River has surprised us before.
And now we go to Lake Taylor and Brian, Lake Taylor is always up there every single year, but they face a Warwick team.
Just defeated Hampton. First playoff win in how long for Warwick?
1990 was their last
This
playoff
Warwick
win.
team
Right.
is better than they were 3 months ago.
And Lake Taylor, how many times can we say Malik Newton's name
Yes.
each week? Now, I understand that he's also a very talented baseball player.
And basketball player.
Yeah.
Is there any chance he takes a path in college other than football?
There's very likely, I've been told, that he is a better baseball player than he is a football player.
That's
Kyler Murray.
right, Kyler
Yeah.
Murray. But so then the next one you look at is Churchland and Kings Fork. We were talking about Kings Fork getting into the playoffs with a losing record, but then upsetting War Hill. Now you have Churchland. I mean, Churchland a couple of years ago, they were struggling up until
Yes,
the last
they were.
several years.
And Churchland believes in themselves. And Churchland has this home game. Kings Fork has played a Southeastern District schedule. So they played Nansemond River,
Yeah.
Indian River, Oscar Smith, Deep Creek. They've played tough opponents. Churchland's had a few tough games here and there, but Kings Fork record does not illustrate or does not show really who they played this year.
And Churchland has Kenny Gallup, who has had
He's
a
solid.
sensational season.
Absolutely.
Is Gallup? You've seen him all season long. Is he really top tier Division I talent? Do you think?
He is not a top tier Division I talent. He is locked in Division I talent. He'll be a really good ball player at the next level.
And finally, we get to two undefeateds in Class 3. We get to Hopewell versus Norcom. And Brian, I was doing a story on this a little earlier in the week. Norcom is a team, and you called this a couple of weeks ago. Norcom is an interesting group filled with athletes, Andy, and they're going up against a Hopewell team that they've faced before. They've
Yes.
seen them.
Yes. This game has already happened.
Robert Jackson is a tremendous coach. Let's just get that out of the way.
Oh, yeah.
But Hopewell is loaded with really good athletes. Travion Henderson is a name to note. I would not be surprised to see Hopewell win the state championships with this team. It would be a heck of a statement for Norcom to win this week.
We don't know much about Hopewell in this part of the state.
Yes.
So
I've had a chance to see them several times this year. They're every bit as good as advertised.
And finally, we get to the York Falcons, who Bay Rivers District regular season champions for the first time, I think, in 9 years? Something like that.
And at times it may have looked like it was smoke and mirrors that got them there, including an upset win over Lafayette.
Yeah.
Yet every
Right.
time the pressure's on, Doug Pereira's team has risen to the occasion.
And they're taking on a Phoebus team. Hey, made it to the Class 3 state championship game last year. One loss between both teams. I mean, this is one of those I guess you circle.
I had a chance to have a conversation with Coach Pereira a few weeks ago, and he told me he was hoping that the playoffs would play out this way, that for once they'd be able to host Phoebus at Bailey Field.
I can't believe Phoebus is going to be at Bailey Field. That's
Yes.
crazy to me. We also in Class 2, Pocosin plays
Absolutely.
King William, and in Class 1, Franklin against Riverheads and Sussex Central against Alta Vista. So there's like more than a dozen teams still alive for a
We
state
have a
title.
lot of great teams out there still playing football.
And Brian, as we wrap up here, I want to know, all these games that we just looked at, what's the one that maybe you're looking at and you're going, man, this could really.
This week, or
I know we're already looking ahead to next week.
I mean, if I'm looking ahead, to be honest, Salem against Maury, to me, that's a once in a decade matchup. I mean, with
That's
that
the
offense
caliber
and
of a
that
state
defense-
championship game.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. I mean,
and everybody's chasing Highland Springs in
And
Class 5.
and whoever wins that game probably goes to play Highland Springs, and that is also a state championship caliber game.
And actually, I like that a lot more because last year, at least years leading up to this, you had Maury last year who had to play Highland Springs in the state semifinals.
Right. Mhm.
So it was almost
Well,
like
it's going to be that way again this year, and that's something to complain about. That's something
Yeah.
I've heard complaints about,
Yeah.
is that the power in Class 5 is in Richmond and down here in the 757. And unfortunately, they have to beat up on each other before they get to the championship game. And the path to the championship game from the north is so much easier.
Andy,
Complaints about the VHSL? Are you
who would have thought?
kidding me? Not the VHSL.
Just another year, another complaint.
And Andy, I want to know from you, this Maury-Nansman River game really has me intrigued for this reason because Maury, we know they win with defense, or excuse me, with offense. They can play defense, but they win with offense. Anytime you have that one night where the offense isn't clicking,
That's the
it
big
can be in trouble.
question
So is Nansman River's defense good enough to at least hold Maury's offense at bay?
On any given night, absolutely. But then again, Maury could score 60 points and a half, as we've seen them
Yeah.
play.
Yes, they can.
And also, Nansman River might be able to hit them blow for blow. And this game could easily be 60 to 55 or something crazy like that. Don't be surprised. And on the artificial turf surface,
Oh my
on a great
gosh.
field at Powhatan,
Lightning.
it could really play out that way.
Is that the game you want to cover?
Well, hey, he's the producer. He's the one who sends me everywhere I got to go, so I'm going to leave that one to you. But I will say,
You can lobby.
yeah, I guess I could. Let me put it this way: I think we'd come back with highlights for that one.
Yeah, I think so.
And the one game we did not touch on was Ocean Lakes and Thomas Dale.
Yeah.
In
Correct,
Class
in Class
6.
6, yeah.
Yes, in Class 6. So we circle all the way back around to Class 6 with that other game where you've got a solid Richmond team coming down led by Chris Tyree, who is a Notre Dame committed track star type of athlete who has missed a bunch of games this season. So I'm not sure whether he's healthy or not. If he is, that's certainly a factor that Ocean Lakes and Joe Jones have to take under consideration.
I know we're going over
that's-
our allotted time, but Andy, your thoughts on teams from Richmond and teams from out in Roanoke being part of this region.
Yes.
Doesn't seem to be the way to do things, in my opinion.
For Class 6, because there are so many Northern Virginia schools that fit in that classification, that seemed to be the only way to do it. So like you said, you have a lump of from Franklin County out near Roanoke to a few Richmond schools and a few 757 schools. It's basically Northern Virginia against the rest of the state.
I mean, I used to like the Eastern region, the Central region.
It was nice.
You had to get out of the region in order to play those teams
Yes.
from the other
I
part
agree
of
completely.
the state.
And then, like
So-
you said, because of that, it also messes up things when you get to the state semifinals, where basically you're playing teams that should be a state championship matchup.
Yes.
I mean, Maury and Highland Springs should have been a state title matchup last year, and instead they had to beat, like you said, they had to beat up on each other to finally get to the
I actually questioned somebody at the VHSL about the new setup, and they yelled at me and said, "Well, that's how they do it in North Carolina." It's like, well, okay, I guess that's the way we have to do it too.
In Class 6, you are guaranteed a Northern Virginia team in the state championship every year until they change it again.
Last thoughts here as we wrap things up. So I guess, Andy, I haven't asked you yet. The big game of these games that we are keeping an eye on, which is the one that really intrigues you the most?
It has to be Salem versus Woodside. And like I said, we could watch them never hit the red zone. We could watch them battling over the 50 all night long if the defenses come to play like I expect them to. So it's going to be the big play and someone who solves the opposing defense that wins the game.
Pitcher's duel.
Pitcher's
Yes.
duel, and I have to say, Oscar Smith, boy, are they peaking at the right time.
Yes, they are.
They have been to the state championship game, 3 years straight before last year, before Ocean Lakes ousted them. Keep an eye on Coach Chris Scott and the Tigers. I think that they could really challenge for Class
They could
6.
have a path to the state championship very quickly, depending on how the bracket plays out.
By the way, and I think Westfield's still waiting.
Yes, they would be the team. It would be Oscar Smith, Westfield
Not
again.
Westfield. Not Westfield.
Oh boy! All right. Well, we definitely went way over our allotted time, but you know what? That's because there's just so much to talk about. I mean, these games are just absolutely fantastic.
It's the beauty of wavy.com.
It is. So if you stayed around this long, we appreciate you for sticking around. Brian Parsons, the producer extraordinaire, produces everything that you see on Wavy TV. Andy Hilton of recruit757.com, and he has been with us all season. We certainly appreciate all of his insight. We appreciate you for stopping by. I'm Nathan Epstein, so you're going to want to tune in to Wavy TV 10 Friday night, 11:15, for our season finale of Friday Night Flights. We can't wait. Hopefully the weather is a little drier.
The chopper will be back, I guess.
There we go. So Chopper's back in the air. We hope you join us, and make sure you keep up with Andy on recruit757.com. Thank you for joining us.